It strikes at the very heart of due process and democracy and the very foundation of Council's mandate under the Local Government Act. To suggest otherwise is at best disingenuous and at worst a lie. And here's back to the young person. Some of you councillors may have felt that forcing this late change through, where some residents have no recourse or challenge to the change, was a price worth paying politically to solve this thorny problem of housing supply. I disagree with this train of thought. By trying to force this change through, as some of you have tried to do, without adequate resident consultation, you have done great harm to the perception of council's integrity with your electorate, and you have badly eroded the trust held in council with ratepayers. As you will all know, trust is a precious commodity, and once it's been lost, it's very difficult to win back. So that's the territory that we're now in, and we should be very afraid. My last myth is that no decisions, we're being told no decisions are being made, settle down, just stick with the process. Decisions have been made. There is lodged evidence. Blue lines are lodged with the IHP right now. Those blue lines are out of scope changes. The majority of us at this table feel compelled to revoke what's being done. It's messy and it's ugly to do so, but it has to be done. And if we ignore the public, we quite simply will pay the price. And my last comment, I might live to regret this one, but it's for you, Councillor Filipaina. Your comment really incensed me about monitoring our Facebook comments. I had heard that it was another councillor doing that.
I didn't say it was yours.
Is it mine?
Just
well,
put
whose
a water.
is it then?
Just put
anyone
a water.
monitoring any of our Facebook comments that catches out with conflict of interest on the nose?
Get your facts right.
Well, then don't bring it up.
Well, get your facts right, because it wasn't you. Get your facts right.
Well, it doesn't matter who it was.
That
that sort of action is going on.
Get your
is
facts
really
right before you start talking.
Yep. Thank you.
That's all you need to do.
Councillor Alf Filipaina, quiet, please. Councillor Clough.
It's starting to degenerate, so I'll try to be brief. I just want to explain the rationale for my decision making. I think it's well known I'm a huge proponent for intensification. My track record at Waitakere City Council and as a long-term New Zealand councillor with Battersby and Clues and what we achieved there, along with the good work of Councillor Hulse and Cooper as well, I will say, that we achieved great things. I believe I'm still doing that same thing in New Zealand, and I'm working quite hard, and I believe we're making progress in getting the community of Avondale to embrace intensification. That's come through in community meetings, but that's also come through in what we've managed to achieve for the community in the long-term plan. But my stance is based on basically due process was not carried out here. Natural justice was not served, because I think some people are quite cavalier about that around the table, and it doesn't really matter. It matters hugely to me that people they have a right to have a fair hearing, and quite clearly we have a duty to act fairly to ensure they do have a fair hearing. Our submission on the outer scope, if I was to endorse that, that clearly shows that I am actually I'm showing bias, and people are not getting the chance to actually submit to that. So I'm sorry, for me, that is not delivering natural justice. The democratic contract we have with our citizens, whether it be central government or citizens or even at the local body, it's a very fragile thing, and we want to be very, very careful we don't muck with that and destroy it, because it is really important for ongoing acceptability of what will be quite a radical unitary plan, I have no doubt, when it's delivered by the Hearings Committee, to get acceptance of that. I'm quite confident actually going forward that if we do this right in these areas with the right consultation, the right education, the right engagement with the community, there's going to be a lot of people, including councillors around here, but a lot of people in the suburbs that are affected by these outer scope, that there will be acceptance. You mentioned Waitakere. The old Waitakere way used to drive me crazy at times, because we used to consult and then consult again and consult and engage. But it worked. we actually turned people around in the west there who were anti-intensification to endorse what we've done in New Lynn, intending to do in Henderson and Glen Eden, around the transport corridors, and accept what. So I believe if we do that going forward, this council does it right, even if that means after the unitary plan is adopted and we go through whatever plan changes to achieve things, we just take our time and we do it properly. I think that's really important. I also have quite a lot of confidence in the independent hearings panel. It has driven me crazy, the process. It's expensive, time-wise, and lawyers. But maybe they're going to come back with something that is really good, something that is radical for a lot of people. And then there'll be the chance to reconsider and people to make submissions. But and clearly, with me being a proponent of intensification, I hope it is quite radical, because we do have to do some radical things. So I'll emphasise, because I don't want to, again, that it is a question of process, because I don't want to be barred for supposedly having made up my mind. In this case, I'm indicating I'm probably going to back intensification, so will I be barred for backing that? I don't know. So, but in a nod to the youth council that came up, can I just say in my ward, which Blockhouse Bay was the area, and New Windsor, but Blockhouse Bay was the main area that was going to be affected by this. To be honest, we don't need, at this stage, I hope there will be in the future, but we don't need three-storey terraced housing there at the moment. We do not need housing that's over $1 million a unit. That is not what is needed in Auckland, and I'm sorry, we've had the Youth Council, we've had Generation Zero, Community Housing, Aotearoa, Property Council to a degree too, all just basically saying we need the affordable housing. I know from within this council, I know the battles I'm having now over trying to complete New Lynn's intensification. The last 2% of a $450 million investment. We haven't got the money just to do this last little bit of roading. We haven't got the money to do the placemaking that needs to be done in Avondale. So why would we be rushing into, and I just say this, and I'm saying, looking at the Chief Executive, that it's not necessarily we're stretching resources too much in many cases. Let's finish, and I put a big emphasis on the affordable housing. Affordable housing is going to be New Lynn. It is going to be Avondale, those sorts of suburbs. It will come in the inner city eventually, but the bottom line is it's pretty tough, and certainly in the eastern suburbs, I don't know, I don't think you're going to get affordable housing unless you've got people who can afford to buy it for you. So I just point that out. But I'll just say one more thing that maybe has been underestimated here, is because a lot of people seem to scoff at the myth, and the younger generation don't quite understand it, but a lot of them do, that people like to have their own house and their own section. We're not used to apartment building, living. So we've got to break that myth down. The old Austin Mitchell's quarter acre Pavlova paradise still holds quite strong for a lot of people. So we just need to challenge that myth and work it through. And there's no reason why a big chunk of our population around New Zealand can not still enjoy that, but the bottom line is a lot of people are going to have to realise they need to be considering apartment living, and that certainly is going to be what my 4 children, if they return to New Zealand, will be starting. That's the ladder they'll be starting on, with apartment living. So I'm sorry I had to vote in some ways, because it's been quite a dilemma for me for the last couple of weeks, but I'm afraid I just believe natural justice should come, and our contract with citizens should come ahead of anything else. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lilly.
Mr Mayor, thank you very much for calling this meeting. I want to thank the members of the public who have come along this afternoon and stayed with this very long meeting to ensure that democracy is kept alive in Auckland. My views on the outer scope changes are well known. I don't intend to repeat them, but the participation of the public and at last the participation of all the elected members of this governing body has just demonstrated that democracy is alive in Auckland, and that the principles and purposes of the Resource Management Act, which sometimes get overlooked in the talk about affordable housing and intensification. Those words don't exist in the Act. But in the Act, it says, in this Act, sustainable management means managing the use, development and protection of natural and physical resources in a way or at a rate which enables people and communities to provide for their social, economic and cultural well-being, subject to the environmental bottom lines. There's no talk of councils, of governments, of Housing New Zealand or the Property Council or anyone else. It's about people and communities. And if we carry Councillor Quack's amendment, we will ensure that people and communities are put back at the heart of our planning in Auckland. Thank you.
Councillor Chris Fletcher.
Thank you. And like other councillors, I want to express my formal gratitude that you have granted us this extraordinary meeting today, because I think it's been really important for clearing the air and giving confidence back to council. What's come out of it, in all the passion that we've heard today, some facts. One is, I don't think anybody around this table is opposed to intensification. Secondly, there is political union. It's not an issue of left versus right or any other kind of connotation here. People have come together across parties to say we're really unhappy with the process. We also know, and it's a fact, that we want to house our young people. We know we've got a housing shortage. So all of these things are givens. They are assumptions that we need to work through. But I think the most important fact, and that is the one that Ken Palmer brought to our attention today, that the plan will not become operative until all appeals are determined. So if you are somebody who is really interested in getting certainty so we can actually start building some of these houses, we actually want to remove the controversy, because otherwise we could be stalled in a process for the next 20 years, and we are not doing justice to those young people who are locked out at the moment. This has been a really interesting test on change management, and I want to say that I really, really applaud our local boards that have come before us today. They came in unity pretty well. They put forward their views, and really it's going to be about confidence and amalgamation. And my greatest fear is by letting this process get out of control and the distrust that was beginning to occur in the council, it would eventually lead to a call for de-amalgamation. Now, I know that there's people around this table who fought amalgamation, and like it or not, I think it has been a good thing. We should have actually been discussing today something that would have been, I think, probably the biggest breakthrough. Somebody who has fought in Parliament and in local government for rail corridors and for all sorts of alternative public transport options. The impediment has always been the relationship between the Auckland councils and the government. And today, we would have been celebrating the absolute breakthrough that will deliver a lot of the infrastructure that is going to be necessary for that unitary plan. You know, Denise said in her speech that, you know, breaking the myth, that someone suggested she was opposed to the unitary plan. I know that she is not opposed to the unitary plan. I know that she has had concerns about infrastructure. I know that she's determined to get the process right. But one of the biggest challenges has been infrastructure. And to have people like Councillor Cashmore be able to go down to Wellington with the Mayor and actually have the type of relationship is largely to do with our CEO, Stephen Town, who brings that experience from local government, from his experience from NZTA, and therefore I want to pay my respects to the staff. We are seeing some really, really good moves happening, but all of that could be thrown into jeopardy by letting our communities remain divided.